Good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream. I'm going to do your June the 26th, just for today, in a meditation. If you need to reach me, feel free to do so at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment down below. And as soon as I see your comment, I will respond. I promise. Okay, June 26th. The title of this meditation is Surrendering Self-Will. Our fears are lessened and faith begins to grow as we learn the true meaning of surrender. We are no longer fighting fear, anger, guilt, self-pity, or depression. That comes from our basic text, page 27. Surrender is the beginning of a new way of life. When driven primarily by self-will, we constantly wondered whether we'd cover all the bases, whether we'd manipulated that person in just the right way to achieve our ends, whether we'd missed a critical detail in our efforts to control and manage the world. We either felt afraid, fearing our schemes would fail, angry, or self-pity when they fell through, or guilty when we pulled them off. It was hard living on self-will, but we didn't know any other way. Not that surrender is always easy. On the contrary, surrender can be difficult, especially in the beginning. Still, it's easier to trust God, a power capable of managing our lives, than to trust ourselves, whose lives are unmanageable. And the more we surrender, the easier it gets. When we turn our will and our lives over to the care of our higher power, all we have to do is our part as responsibly and conscientiously as we can. Then we can leave the results up to our higher power. By surrendering, acting on faith, and living our lives according to the simple spiritual principles of this program, we can stop worrying and start living. Just for today, I will seek knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry it out. I will leave the results in my higher power's hands. Let's take a moment of silence, family, followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. I love this meditation. And I'm sure I've read it before. I've done the Just for Today's meditation for at least a year now. I'm sure I've read this before. However, there's something that is so, like, is pulling me towards it. I can really relate to this meditation. I can relate and see if you can as well, okay? Let me walk through this at the pace that works for me. Sip this coffee and take my time with this. Okay. See if you can relate. This is my experience in relationship to this meditation, surrendering self-will. Self-will, what to me, for in my life, self-will was a whole entity all by itself. I don't know if you understand that or not, but all in and of itself, self-will was a whole entity, was a higher power. Okay, let me break this down. I was a person that, well, childhood trauma was very severe. Okay, so I was a person that realized that I could save myself in a sense. All right. And the way that I would save myself would be determine what the other person or the situation was, what I was dealing with, and I would analyze it and figure out how many different ways can this go. And then I would pick the worst case scenario, right? And then I would adjust or create this persona to deal with that particular situation. And almost 99.9% of the time, I was right. So as I developed confidence in my capability to read my emotional intelligence, right, to be able to read a room or a situation and respond in a way that would bring me out as the victor. In most situations, it wasn't even about being attacked. It wasn't about people misusing me or abusing me or discriminating against me. And most of the time, that was not even the case, but that's where my mind took it. And so I would figure out what's the worst case scenario, and then I would develop this persona to deal with that. And then that's who you would meet. That's who came to the table. But all of it was a disguise, or it actually wasn't a disguise. It was a part of the personality that I developed because that's what I needed to do. That's what I thought I had to do. I had to know for sure that this situation was not going to cause me harm and that this situation was going to, at the very least, stay as it is or not cause me harm. It could get better, but a lot of times I wasn't worried about coming out on top in that sense, right? Financially, position wise at the job. I really wasn't worried about that. I was just worried about having to deal with criticism and people judging me and making me feel, or no, making me realize or feel, yes, that the thoughts that were conveyed to me as a child were true, which is that you're ugly, you're nothing, and you'll never be anything, and you deserve to die. Okay, in a nutshell. Maybe not four things, three, right? You're nothing, you'll never be anything, and you shouldn't be here, right? You should never have been born. So I just never wanted to have that affirmed by interactions with people. I didn't want the individual to convey to me that that was true. So I wanted to do anything I could to avoid abandonment and rejection. And that is what self-will was for me, was that you got to pull through this. You have got to make this as sweet as possible. And that meant that, for the most part, I would just say manipulation in the sense of me not bringing my true essence to the table. In some situations, I probably manipulated and lied, but more than likely, it wasn't that. It was that I needed to get you to see me in this particular light so that that would cause you not to try and hurt me with your words or your actions. So it was manipulative in that sense. So I don't know if you can relate to that or not, right? Surrendering that was a process. I mean, I had already done step 6 and step 7 and still was funky, right? I still had the tendency to rely on these character defects that I thought were life-saving, right? They were survivor skills for me. And so it was really hard to relinquish it. You know, going through the steps for me wasn't quite honestly, going through the steps for me initially wasn't even about the growth that I was seeking. It wasn't about that. It was about being able to say, yeah, I'm working on step 6. And, this step here, man, my character defects. I don't know if I'm entirely ready. I mean, this is right. And I would philosophize about the steps that I was on in my shares to look good. It wasn't that I was interested in the work. Man, please. I wasn't even interested. I know somebody is laughing out there. Man, please, right? That sounds so crazy, straight ghetto, right? Man, please. Yeah, I know that's funny for someone, right? But it wasn't even about it. I didn't even like my sponsor, right? So that's what I'm saying. It wasn't even about, this relationship with my sponsor. I couldn't stand my sponsor. And the majority of the ones I had, I mean, man, if I could just get through a season with them, I was doing good, but it would take one-on-one, not even a phone call. Generally speaking, if they said yes, I was like, I don't think they know what they said yes to. I really don't know if they're ready for this because I'm not just, any old kind of sponsee that don't have a brain of her own, right? Yeah, like I'm not high. Right? I was smart high. Can you imagine me and my intelligence, my game capacity when I'm not high? Like to sponsor me, you better bring it because not, I'm not weak, right? So I didn't even like my sponsor most of the time, and there was very few of them that I did. That's why I would just get another one. Like, no, you, you have to be able to bring this step work and these traditions and the spiritual application to me. This is not a fireside chit chat, right? I'm not really trying to hang out with you like that. So it wasn't even about trying to impress or have a relationship with a sponsor. It was about being able to say I had done it. Right? I worshiped knowledge and I worshiped myself. I worshiped self will. I was a God unto myself, not to others necessarily, even though there were situations where I felt that um, my ability to help was miraculous in it of itself for someone else. But I was arrogant, but not arrogant like that. Right. So my help was genuine. But mostly it served myself. My will, my self will was a God unto myself. So now trying to say, okay, I'm back at step 3 again. Turn my will in my life. How many times had I spiritually relapsed? I can't even necessarily count how many times I had relapsed spiritually on this issue of having a God of my own understanding because I felt so betrayed and so left and so abandoned and so rejected in the circumstances of my birth. I don't know if I've even talked about that here, right? The circumstances of my birth were so jacked up, right? You know, I don't have a story that my mother was raped and kept me and we don't know who my father is. I don't have that story. And I can only imagine what having that story as a part of a person's background. I can only imagine the automatic negative thoughts that would come with that through life, but pretty close, right? Mine is pretty close. And so, my that just kind of stopped me right there. It just hit my spirit right there. How so many of us today we're using drugs and picking up and having these behaviors and patterns play out It's a direct result of that early childhood development, a direct result of the messages we received, in those first couple, 3 years of life. And, in my story, I didn't have anything to do with how I came into this world, and neither did you. But the people that were raising us in our surroundings, how they responded to our presence sometimes became cemented in our being. And it just really breaks my heart that we struggle so deeply and we love so hard, and people don't really understand. People really don't understand that being an addict it's not by choice most of the time. It's something that we stepped into to soothe the agony of who we the message that we received about who we were. And so I just really want to say to you, if you're out there listening, I understand. I understand wanting to protect, my yourself. I understand. I get it. I get it that, sometimes getting high feels like the answer because it changes our perception of what the reality is. And the reality oftentimes is that we just don't love ourselves. We just don't like ourselves, and we're not comfortable with our presence in the world. And we're still looking for the other shoe to drop. We're still looking for someone to say something negative or to reflect to us that they don't really like us or care for us. And the world is not this big, beautiful place anymore. The world has become quite self-motivated. And so it's a dog eat dog world in a lot of ways when we're out there trying to function as productive members of society. And they're not even aware of our past, but they're just being themselves, their selfish, self-centered selves without a program. And they have no clue about what they're doing to us or how we're perceiving the situation or what messages it triggers within us. No idea. And so I just want to say to you, if you've listened this far into the podcast, I love you. And I know that you can do it. I know that this situation that you're dealing with right now, you may not be able to see the light out of it, but the fact that you keep coming here every morning listening to the podcast is a step in the right direction. It shows your faith, it shows your hope. It shows me your step two, that you have come to believe that you can be restored to sanity. And that if you don't get your step three right every day, you're not the first, nor will you be the last. And it won't take your life, right? You won't die as a result of having some doubt today. Not today, because you're listening to the podcast. And when you walk away from the podcast, you're going to say, okay, I need to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand them again. Well, maybe you need to adjust your higher power if you're really, your understanding of your higher power, if you're struggling with turning it over. There's something that's unfinished, something like in my situation. I just realized that the struggle was that how could you love me and bring me into the world like this? Like, what was your plan? There's so many babies that didn't make it. And what I was it by chance that I got here, or were you involved with my presence? Because I would never bring a child into the world that I knew was going to be absolutely hated. That was my automatic negative thought. And I realized that came from, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, oh, that came out of the clear blue sky. That came from nowhere. No, that came from the messages that I received as a child, the way people interacted with me. and it became a part of my being as a grown woman. And I had to take a look at that, and you've gotta take a look at it too. You don't get a pass. You do not get a pass. You are not unique in that sense. Using drugs obliterated everything that we knew. So yeah, you gotta dig in deep. You can't say, "Oh, I just don't believe. I don't do that G word. I don't. God, nah, please. That's not something I'm talking about. Really, for real, for real. No, I don't believe in God like that. Well, what do you believe in? Because if you were like me and you are continuing to have this self will as your God, your best man, look, your best thinking is what got you here. Really? You're going to hold on to your own thought processes, understanding that this is a disease of addiction. You might put the drug down, but I guarantee you, 99.9% sure, I guarantee you, fact check it. You might put the drug down, but you are going to pick up something else. And you're going to sugarcoat that something else. And you're going to say, well, at least I'm not using drugs. Okay, but you still on your back paying rent with people you don't have no relationship with. You don't know them. Yeah, but you still putting your hand in the register at work. That's not your money. You still getting a paycheck, and before you can even pay your bills, you at the casino. You go to meetings, you not picking up drugs, but you picking up the newcomer. And you picked up all the last 30 that have come through the door and devastated the majority of them because they really think you about something. You helping them feel better about themselves. But no, you just are targeting them, right? They're just prey for your lust. So you might not be picking up the drug, but you picked up something else. And if your higher power is you, man, look, we in trouble. Just for today, my name is Mighty Stream. Listen, I just want to share with you that recovery is possible. But we got to surrender self-will like completely. 100%. It served me absolutely. It served the purpose of making me think that I was better than I actually was. And then it came in between me having a relationship with God. We got to move past that. We've got to move past that. This is not the season to be trying to get one more. People are falling dead at the first hit because most of the stuff is laced with fentanyl. And we don't even want to talk about trying. We don't even want to go there. This is not the season to take your self will back. This is the season to stick and stay, sit down, make sure you're working your process with your sponsor. We got to roll our sleeves up, folks, and get busy. My name is Mighty Stream. I've enjoyed talking to you today. I will post the next one here in a moment. Have a beautiful day on purpose. I most certainly intend to talk to you soon.